Hi, this is Miss Goodale, and today's video is going to be discussing converting percents to fractions and decimals. And I'm going to show you this is the sheet that we passed out in class that has the notes on it. It should have both directions on how to convert a percent to a fraction and from a percent to a decimal. Both of these methods are fairly simple and self-explanatory. So it may go fairly quickly. Let's start with the example that we have on the notes sheet. 68%. A percent is a value out of 100. So I'm going to put 68 over 100, and then all I have to do is reduce. So it's pretty much as simple as putting the value over 100 and reducing. So if I have 68 100ths can both be divided by 4. 68 divided by 4 is 17. 100 divided by 4 is 25. Now another way I could have done it to reduce, they could have been both divided by 2 first. And 68 divided by 2 is 34. 100 divided by 2 is 50. And that's not in lowest terms, so I would have had to divide again. And those both would have been able to be divided by 2 again. 34 divided by 2 is 17. 50 divided by 2 is 25. So I still get the same answer regardless of whether I divided twice or whether I just divided once. Okay. Another example, let's just do 25%. And some of you guys may be able to figure this one out just in your head. But just for the video's sake, I'm going to go over this the same way that I would the others. So 25 we're going to put out of 100, and 25 and 100 can both be divided by 25. "25 divided by 25 is 1, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. And again, this is another one where I could have divided it more than once. I could have divided by 5. I got 5/20ths, and then divided by 5 again, and got 1/4. And again, I would get the same answer. Let's do a one-digit example. So if I have 6%, I still put 6 out of 100. And 6 and 100 can both be divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Let's do a three-digit example. 110. So we still put it over 100. 110 and 100 can both be divided by 10. 110 divided by 10 is 11. 100 divided by 10 is 10. And in order for me to convert that from an improper fraction to a mixed number, I'm going to show you the division, even though we have gone over this in class. It'll go in there once. I subtract and I get 1. So this number here is my whole number. My number that's left over here is my numerator, and my number that I divided by is the denominator. And remember, the denominator stays the same. So it would be either 11/10, 1 1/10, or 110%. Those are all naming the same value. In your book, there may be some that are a little bit more complex, but they're basically done the same way. Let's say I had 0.6%. So this time I have 0.6, which is actually read as 6/10. I put it over 100. The first thing that they have you do is actually get rid of that decimal by multiplying both of those by 10, because when I multiply by 10, I'm moving the decimal to the right. So that makes it 6 over 1,000. Okay, it just moves at the same amount of zeros in the decimal. And then I put a 0 on my 100. So I have 6 over 100, and then I still need to reduce because 6 1,000ths is not lowest terms. So I can divide both of those by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. So this one is 3/500. It's very similar to this problem up here, but this one had a decimal. So if you'll notice, the difference between these two is this one is 10 times bigger on the bottom. All right, now let's get to some examples of just converting from a percent to a decimal. And this is pretty simple, I think. Let's start again with 68%. And if you remember from previous learning, you should have like an imaginary decimal here, is what I kind of tell you guys. So the imaginary decimal is going to move. If there's already a decimal, you move the real decimal. But this one is imaginary because 68 is a whole number. So there's 1, 2 decimal places that I'm going to move, and then I put a 0 in front. So it would be 68 hundredths is how I would read it, which actually kind of matches up with my fraction up here, 68 hundredths. Let's do another one. If I have 15%, again, I have this imaginary decimal. I move twice, which is 15 hundredths. Put my equal sign in here. And let's do 4%. So this one is a 1-digit number. I still have that imaginary decimal. This time, I jumped a spot and there's no number there, so I put a 0, and then I automatically have a 0 in front of my decimal. So I have a 0, and then a decimal, another decimal, or another 0, and a 4, which actually makes us 400ths. And let's do 110%. Move the imaginary decimal twice. We have the decimal between the ones. So it would be 1 and 10 hundredths or 1 and 1/10 if I dropped off the 0. An example with starting out using a decimal number would be 1 and 5/10%. So I still move that twice. I put a 0 where there wasn't a number. I put another 0 before my decimal. And that means I have 1 0 after the decimal, and that makes this 15 thousandths because the 5 is in the thousandths place. I hope this helps, and I might have to answer some questions later on, especially on questions such as converting a problem that starts out as a decimal percent. Ask me questions as needed, and hopefully this helps. Thank you.